There are only 6 places a chord can go. That may sound absurd when you're looking at the seemingly never-ending keyboard, but this is just a repeating pattern of 12 notes. Each repetition is an octave, a distance of 12 semitones. But what is a semitone? A semitone is the unit of the musical ruler. A ruler measures inches. The musical ruler measures semitones. If we start on C and go up 1 note to D flat, this is 1 semitone. Continuing this line of thought, you may think, if I start on C, there are 11 places I could go. And you wouldn't be wrong. But if instead of thinking of the octave as a linear sequence, we think of it as a mirror image with C at the center, something interesting happens. Now, if we start on C and move by 1 semitone, there are 2 equal possibilities. Move up and we land on D flat. Move down and we land on B. Before, we may have regarded the motion to D flat as 1 semitone and the motion to B as 11 semitones. We may have thought of D flat and B as 2 entirely separate places that our C note could travel to. But now, we can see that they are actually 2 sides of the same coin. Motion by 1 semitone, up and down. This is the first of the 6 places a chord can go, 1 semitone away from its current position. But hold on, how are these the same if they are going in 2 different directions? Wouldn't that mean that the motion and sound would be different? Well, they are slightly different. I think of the motion upward and downward as being twins, but not identical twins. Let's imagine these motions as chord progressions. The first progression goes back and forth between C and D flat. The second progression goes back and forth between C and B. The motion from C to D flat is up by 1 semitone, which is the same as the motion from B to C. The motion from C to B is down by 1 semitone, the same as the motion from D flat to C. The motion up 1 semitone and down 1 semitone are a reflection of one another, an inversion of one another. They are non-identical twins. This holds true for any number of semitones. You may be thinking, we aren't really talking about chords. We are just looking at where a single note can go. And also, aren't there different chord types? And wouldn't that mean that going from C minor to D flat minor would be different than going from C major to D flat major? Yes, those would be 2 different chord progressions, but not in the deepest sense. We are thinking of single notes because these individual notes are potential roots. A root is a chord's lowest note. It's what gives a chord its name. The root is the core identity of a chord. The motion between the roots, the root motion, is the core identity of a chord progression. The chord type, major, minor, dominant, or anything else, doesn't change the root of a chord. It's just the costume the root is wearing. The way our chords are dressed doesn't change who they really are. They could be wearing tuxedos or tracksuits. Either way, we will still recognize them as their roots. Before we continue with the other 5 places a chord can go, let's turn this first motion of 1 semitone into some actual music. To do this, we'll use 3 powerful tools that can weld any set of chords together, no matter how unrelated they might be. First, let's create our root motion. Moving by 1 semitone, we have 2 options, up or down. Let's go with up, from C to D flat. The costume we will dress these roots in will be minor 11 chords. The chord progression will simply go back and forth between these 2 chords. Let's build C minor 11 by taking the notes of the C minor scale and spanning it across 2 octaves. We'll start on C and skip a note until we reach the 11th note. Let's hear it on the piano roll. This is C minor 11. Now let's build D flat minor 11 using the exact same process, except instead of the notes of the C minor scale, we'll use the notes of a D flat minor scale, the D flat Dorian mode. Bonus points if you can sort out why we would choose D flat Dorian in this context. Comment your theories below. Let's hear it on the piano roll. This is D flat minor 11. Let's hear C minor 11 and D flat minor 11 together in sequence. One thing about this one semitone up or down motion is that it is pretty overt. It is perhaps the most jarring type of motion, which is no surprise because we are basically copying and pasting the chord one semitone above. This isn't a good or bad thing. This overt sound is the perfect spice for many a dish, but for what I have in mind, I'm going to aim to obscure this overt up and down motion. This is where the first of our three tools comes into the picture: common tones. At first glance, it appears that every note in C minor 11 goes up one semitone to D flat minor 11. But if we take a closer look, we'll see that there is one tone that remains consistent between the two chords. E flat is the minor third or flat third of C minor 11, but E flat is also the ninth of D flat minor 11. E flat is a tone that the two chords share. This is a common tone. With the notes of the chords in the position that they are now, this common tone is nearly invisible. But if we change the arrangement of the notes of the chords to create a new voicing, we can make this common tone not just apparent, but a featured element of the chord progression. Let's move the E flat of our C minor 11 chord up an octave. Now, even though the rest of the chord is overtly moving up and down, this single tone is an unwavering laser beam through the harmony, refusing to budge. This pulls focus away from the obvious semitone up and down motion, and our ears have something else, something more intriguing to latch onto. To highlight this further, let's repeat E flat across the whole progression with offbeat eighth notes. Part of what makes this so tasty to me is that we have the ninth of C minor 11, D, right under the common tone, E flat. This creates a unique tension. We can continue to ride this tension over D flat minor 11 by taking the minor third or flat third and repositioning it up an octave. Now we have an equal and opposite tone up against the common tone, E flat. Instead of D right underneath, we now have E right above. Let's hear these tension notes on their own. On their own, it is very dissonant. It would be hard to imagine a place to use something like this other than a dark film score or something. But we are going to couch it right in the middle of this colorful chord progression, where this tension will secretly create energy and momentum for us while hiding amidst the watercolors. This is a good example of the kinds of quirks and surprises awaiting your discovery when creating music this way. There is still one aspect of our chord progression and voicings that is keeping us anchored to the obvious and overt motion of up and down by one semitone, and it has to do with how we tend to hear chords. For most people, when a chord with many notes is played, not every individual note is explicitly and clearly perceived. Often, the ear latches on to the highest note, perceiving it as a melody. Currently, the top note of each chord, the de facto melody, moves up by one semitone. And the bottom note of each chord, the roots, move in the same direction and by the same distance. When notes move in the same direction, we tend to perceive them like a school of fish, a mass moving as one, no individuality. When notes move in opposite directions, it creates a kind of sonic conflict and allows those tones to be perceived as unique characters with opposing motivations. This is exactly what our second tool handles: notes that move in opposite directions, contrary motion. Let's move G, the fifth of C minor 11, up an octave. Now, the top note of each chord moves downward from G, the fifth of C minor 11, to G flat, the 11th of D flat minor 11. And the bottom note of each chord still moves upward from C to D flat, the roots. Now, the top and bottom notes move in opposite directions. This is contrary motion. If I was unaware of the inner workings that we've been chiseling at here, my impression of these chords upon first listen would be that there is an element staying in place in a mysterious way. That would be due to the common tone, E flat. I would also feel a general sensation of falling, which is due to the top note moving in contrary motion to the chord roots, from G to G flat. Both of these features are spreading a rather thick fog over the reality of the chord progression, which is that it is simply an overt shift, a copying and pasting of a chord up by one semitone. This is just about ready for a drum groove, but first, we need to do one more thing. The top note of C minor 11, G, is a bit blurry because we have four notes right next to one another: D, E flat, F, and G. These are the 9th, minor 3rd, 11th, and 5th. To give G, the top note, more clarity, let's move the 11th, F, down an octave. Now, G is not crowded at the top of the chord, which allows it to be more clearly perceived. And also, now that F is down here, our C minor 11 chord now has four notes that are all a perfect fourth from one another. This gives our C minor 11 voicing a quartal flavor, which makes the progression even more ethereal. Now, let's put this to a groove and add some syncopation to the rhythm of the chords. Syncopation is emphasizing the in-between notes or rhythms, and in this case, let's emphasize the 8th note in between beat 4 and 1, commonly called the and of 4. Let's shift our D flat minor 11 chord so it happens here. We'll extend our chord progression so that it repeats for 8 bars, and we'll make this same rhythmic shift for every chord except the first. At the end of every C minor 11 chord, we'll leave an 8th note gap to take advantage of silence as a creative tool. And we'll add a melodic turnaround note at the end of the 8-bar loop. This drum pattern is adapted from a pattern in Drum Accelerator Volume 1, which is part of Vible Volume 1, a full toolkit that gives you instant access to these kinds of chords, drum patterns, bass lines, and melodies. You'll find the link below. Now, we're going to remove the roots from the piano part, except for the first C minor 11 root. We're going to give these notes to the bass, because no instrument does a better job with roots than the bass. This now leaves room for us to create a secondary melody in the bottom register using our third musical tool, counter melody. A counter melody is the main melody's top advisor. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they argue. Sometimes the counter melody listens and other times it does the talking, but they are partners in melody. Let's connect the new lowest notes of each chord, F and A flat, by walking through the chord tones. We'll start on F and walk up to G, the 5th of C minor 11, which steps perfectly up to A flat, the 5th of D flat minor 11. Then, We'll walk back down by moving to G flat, the 11th of D flat minor 11, which steps nicely down by one semitone to F. We'll repeat this for the rest of the chord progression. For the first C minor 11 chord, we'll shorten F so that it can be approached by C. And we'll add a D flat in the gap at the end, which will walk down nicely to C by one semitone. This is our counter melody, the top advisor to our primary melody up top. Inside of this simple root motion, we found a whole universe of chordal quirks and oddities. Each root motion has its own harmonic superpower and vulnerability. Having a way to navigate the compositional waters and keep track of where you've been and where you're going is super powerful, especially when combined with musical tools like common tones, contrary motion, and counter melodies. When you put it all together, you can weld any root motion and any chord type together, and find musical gems often overlooked or even made invisible when using a traditional lens. So, where are the other 5 places a chord can go? The other 5 follow the same pattern as the first. If we start on C and move now by 2 semitones, there are 2 possibilities. Move up, we land on D. Move down, we land on B flat. Before, we might have thought of the motion to D as 2 semitones, and the motion to B flat as 10 semitones. But through this lens, we can see that they are both motion by 2 semitones. This is the second possible place a chord or note can go, 2 semitones away from its starting point. If we move by 3 semitones, we land on E flat going up, and A going down. It would be easy to think of this as 3 semitones and 9 semitones. But they are both motion by 3 semitones, 3 semitones away from its starting point, the third place a chord or note can go. If we move up by 4 semitones, we land on E. Move down by 4 semitones and we land on A flat. Not to be mistaken with 4 semitones and 8 semitones. In their simplest form, they are both moving by 4 semitones. This is the fourth place a chord or tone can go, 4 semitones away from its starting point. Move by 5 semitones and we land on F above and G below. It wouldn't be unreasonable to regard the motion to F as 5 semitones and the motion to G as 7 semitones, especially considering that they are right next to one another. But through this simplifying lens, we can see that they are actually 2 sides of the same coin, motion by 5 semitones. The 5th place a chord or tone can go, 5 semitones away from its starting point. The 6th and final place a chord or tone can go is an anomaly. It's the wild card. If we start on C and move by 6 semitones, there are 2 truly equal possibilities. If we move up, we land on F sharp. Move down, and we also land on F sharp. The exact same tone, just an octave lower. This is a tritone, a distance of 6 semitones. It is half of an octave, and it is symmetrical. Regardless of whether you go 6 semitones up or down, you arrive at the same place, in this case F sharp, 6 semitones from C. This is the last place a chord or tone can go, 6 semitones away from its starting point. These are the 6 places a chord or tone can go, up or down by 1 to 6 semitones in each direction. There is one more loose end here. You may have already spotted it. What about these other notes? Wouldn't these be more places a chord or tone could go? This is where the illusion lies. 6 semitones, the tritone, is the reflection point. Anything beyond the tritone is a repetition of somewhere we've already been. If we start on C and move by 7 semitones, we arrive at G, 7 semitones above, and F, 7 semitones below. But we have already encountered this pair. F and G were where we arrived when moving by 5 semitones. The only difference is that they are flipped. Moving by 5 semitones, F is above. Moving by 7 semitones, F is below. Moving by 5 semitones, G is below. Moving by 7 semitones, G is above. Whether we move by 7 or 5 semitones from the starting point, we arrive at the same 2 roots, F and G. 5 and 7 semitones are 2 different paths to the same destination. This remains true as we proceed further out. Move by 8 semitones and we arrive at A flat above and E below. The same 2 notes we land on when moving by 4 semitones. The only difference is that they are flipped. Motion by 4 semitones and 8 semitones brings us to the same place. Move by 9 semitones and we arrive at A above and E flat below. The 2 places we landed when moving by 3 semitones. Again, the only difference is their location is flipped. Motion by 3 semitones and 9 semitones brings us to the same places. Motion by 10 semitones brings us to B flat above and D below. The 2 places that motion by 2 semitones brought us, but flipped. 2 semitones and 10 semitones takes us to the same places. And lastly, move by 11 semitones and we'll land on B above and D flat below. The places we arrived at when moving by 1 semitone. The only difference is that their position is flipped. Whether we travel by 1 semitone or 11 semitones, we arrive at the same places. None of these possibilities past the tritone offer any new root movements, and therefore, we are left with only 6 possible places our chord can go. These 6 places are the cardinal directions on our musical compass. But this is just the beginning. Things really come to life when you start freely chaining different root motions together and using different chord types. This approach is what I call the wormhole method. Instead of searching for the hidden keys to unlock each harmonic door, the wormhole method gives you the ability to teleport from any harmonic zone to another, allowing you to discover harmony through hands-on experimentation, but not blind guesswork. If you want a full toolkit that gives you instant access to these kinds of chords, drum patterns, bass lines, and melodies, then check out Vible Volume 1. If you want to learn how to bring these kinds of ideas and approaches into your music, then check out my courses. And if you want to work with me one-on-one and bring your music to life, then join the Society of Vibe. You'll find all the links below. Until next time, farewell.